let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. When was the last time you looked at your bank account and felt genuinely secure about your future? Not just comfortable for the next month or two, but truly confident that you're building wealth that will last generations. For most people, that feeling never comes. And here's the disturbing truth: it's not because you're lazy, it's not because you lack discipline, and it's certainly not because you don't work hard enough. The real problem is far more insidious. You've been trained from your very first day of school to play a game where the rules are designed to keep you running in place while someone else collects the winnings. I spent decades studying economic systems, financial markets, and the patterns of wealth creation across centuries. What I discovered changed everything I thought I knew about money. There's a fundamental misunderstanding that most people carry with them their entire lives, and it costs them everything. They believe that earning more money is the solution to their financial problems. Get a better job, work harder, climb the ladder, earn that promotion. But here's what nobody tells you: earning more money whilst thinking like an employee is just a faster hamster wheel. You're still a hamster. Think about it this way. Imagine two people both earning £50,000 a year. One person views that salary as their income, the other views it as their seed capital. 10 years later, the first person might be earning £70,000 and feeling slightly less anxious about bills. The second person has built assets that generate £40,000 a year without them lifting a finger. Same starting point, completely different destinations. The difference isn't intelligence, luck, or even opportunity. It's understanding a principle that the wealthy have known for centuries: income is not wealth. Income is what you trade your time for. Wealth is what works for you whilst you sleep. Now, let me take you back to something that happened during the 2008 financial crisis. I watched ordinary people lose their homes, their savings, their entire sense of security. But I also watched something else. I watched people who understood how money really works not only survive, but thrive during that chaos. They weren't smarter. They weren't luckier. They simply understood that the game everyone else was playing was rigged from the start, so they stopped playing it. Here's the trap, and I need you to really hear this. The system we live in needs consumers, not wealth builders. It needs people who wake up, go to work, earn money, spend that money, and repeat. Every single institution around you, from banks to governments to corporations, benefits when you stay in this cycle. Your salary gets taxed before you even see it. The money that's left is eroded by inflation whilst it sits in a savings account earning essentially nothing. Meanwhile, you're encouraged to borrow for everything from education to cars to homes, creating debt that keeps you working for decades just to break even. But the truly clever part of this trap is how it makes you feel like you're winning. You get a raise, you feel successful. You buy a nicer car, a bigger house, and it feels like progress. But look closer at what's actually happening. That raise pushes you into a higher tax bracket. That nicer car is a depreciating asset. That bigger house comes with a larger mortgage, higher maintenance costs, more property tax. You're earning more, but you're not building wealth. You're upgrading your lifestyle in exact proportion to your income, which keeps you exactly where you started, dependent on next month's paycheck. I remember speaking with a doctor once who earned over £200,000 a year. Brilliant man, saved lives every day. But he came to me stressed about money. How is that possible? Because he had structured his entire life around that income. The expensive home, the private schools, the luxury cars, the lifestyle that matched his status. He was trapped just as surely as someone earning 30,000, perhaps even more so, because his golden handcuffs were heavier. One bad year, one health crisis, one unexpected disruption, and the whole carefully constructed house of cards would collapse. This is what I call the salary trap, and it's everywhere. It's the belief that your income defines your worth and that increasing your income is the path to financial freedom. But freedom doesn't come from earning more. It comes from needing less and owning more of what produces value. Let me show you what I mean with a simple example. Suppose you spend £10 on coffee and lunch every workday. Over a year, that's roughly £2,500. Now, most financial advice would tell you to cut that spending and save the money. That's not wrong, but it's incomplete. What if, instead of just saving that money, you understood what it could become? £2,500 invested in assets that generate a 10% annual return becomes over £16,000 in 20 years. But here's the real magic. If you do that every year, consistently redirecting money from consumption to assets, you're not just saving, you're building a machine that starts generating its own money. After 10 years of this pattern, your assets are producing enough to cover that coffee and lunch without you working for it. You've broken the first link in the chain that binds you to your salary. But breaking free requires something most people aren't willing to do. It requires you to stop measuring success the way society tells you to measure it. It requires you to look at a friend who just bought a Range Rover and not feel envious because you understand that car is designed to extract wealth, not create it. It requires you to live below your means, not because you're cheap, but because you're strategic. It requires patience in a world that sells instant gratification as the ultimate goal. The wealthy don't think in terms of what they can afford based on their monthly income. They think in terms of what assets they can acquire that will produce income. This shift in thinking changes everything. When you're offered a raise, your first thought isn't about upgrading your lifestyle. It's about how much faster you can acquire your next income producing asset. When you have extra money, you don't ask what you can buy. You ask what you can own that will make you richer. I want you to understand something crucial about how wealth actually compounds. Most people think compound interest is just about money growing in a bank account. But real compounding happens when you stack advantages on top of each other in ways that create momentum. Let me paint you a picture of how this works in practice. Imagine you own a small rental property. That property generates income every month. Now, most people would take that income and spend it, maybe on something they've wanted or to upgrade their lifestyle a bit. But someone who understands real wealth takes that rental income and uses it as proof of cash flow to secure another property. Now they have two properties generating income. That combined income gets used to secure a third. Within a few years, they've built a portfolio that generates more passive income than their salary, and they did it without needing to earn more at their day job. The asset bought the next asset. That's real compounding. But here's where most people get stuck. They've been conditioned to believe that this kind of wealth building is only for people who already have money, people who got lucky, people with special knowledge or connections. This belief is perhaps the most expensive lie you'll ever tell yourself. The truth is, the biggest barrier between you and wealth isn't money. It's the stories you believe about money. I've seen people earning minimum wage build substantial wealth over 20 years because they understood these principles. I've also seen people earning £500,000 a year retire with almost nothing because they never escaped the salary trap. The difference is never about how much you earn. It's about what you do with what you earn and how you think about the purpose of money in your life. Let me share something that changed my entire perspective on economics. When you study empires throughout history, from Rome to the British Empire to modern superpowers, you notice a pattern. Wealth and power don't stay in one place. They move. They flow from those who consume to those who produce, from those who spend to those who invest, from those who work for money to those who make money work for them. This isn't a moral judgment. It's just how the system works. The question is, which side of that flow do you want to be on? Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This all sounds good in theory, but life is expensive. There are bills to pay, children to feed, genuine obligations that can't just be ignored in pursuit of some long-term wealth strategy. I understand that. I've never lived in an ivory tower, disconnected from real-world pressures. But here's what I've learned. Those pressures never go away by staying on the hamster wheel. They only get worse. The only way out is through, and through means making different choices than the ones that got you here. Start with this simple exercise. Look at everything you spent money on last month and ask yourself one question for each expense. Did this move me closer to freedom, or did it move me closer to dependence? That gym membership you never use, dependence. That subscription service you forgot you had, dependence. That brand new phone when your old one worked fine, dependence. Now, I'm not saying you should live like a monk. Quality of life matters, but most people are unconsciously hemorrhaging money on things that add no real value to their lives whilst telling themselves they can't afford to invest. Here's a framework that helped me and countless others break free. Think of your money in three categories. The first is survival food, shelter, basic necessities. The second is lifestyle, everything that makes life enjoyable but isn't strictly necessary. The third is freedom, money that goes towards acquiring assets that will eventually make your survival and lifestyle automatic. Most people spend everything on survival and lifestyle, leaving nothing for freedom. Then they wonder why, after decades of work, they're no closer to financial independence than when they started. The game-changing insight is this: every pound you move from lifestyle to freedom is a pound that will work for you forever. But every pound you keep in lifestyle is a pound you'll have to earn again next month, and the month after that, and the month after that until you die or can't work anymore. When you really internalize this, you start making radically different choices. You start seeing spending differently. That the 200 dinner isn't just 0.200. It's the future passive income that 200 could have generated for the rest of your life. Maybe that's still worth it to you. Maybe it's not. But at least now you're making an informed choice rather than sleepwalking through your financial life. Let me tell you about a principle I call the 3 layers of financial security. The first layer is your emergency fund, enough money to cover 6 months of expenses. This is your foundation, your safety net that prevents you from going backwards when life throws unexpected challenges your way. Most people never even build this first layer because they're too busy maintaining a lifestyle they can't actually afford. The second layer is your income, producing assets, investments that generate cash flow, whether you work or not. This layer is where you start building real wealth. The third layer is your growth assets, investments that may not produce income now, but have the potential to appreciate significantly over time. Each layer serves a different purpose, and you need all 3 to build genuine, lasting wealth. But here's the critical thing: most financial advisors won't tell you. You can't build these layers whilst you're drowning in consumer debt. Credit cards, car loans, personal loans with high interest rates. These are anchors that will keep you underwater no matter how hard you swim. The interest you're paying is wealth flowing out of your life and into someone else's pocket. Every month, without fail, you're making someone else richer whilst making yourself poorer. You cannot, and I mean absolutely cannot, build wealth whilst you're in this position. It's mathematically impossible. The first step on the journey to financial freedom is cutting the anchors loose. Now, I want to address something that stops a lot of people before they even start. They look at wealthy people and they see the end result, the properties, the investments, the lifestyle. And it seems so far from where they are now that it feels impossible. But you're not seeing the beginning. You're not seeing the years of living below their means, the opportunities they passed on, the delayed gratification, the strategic decisions made when no one was watching. Wealth building is boring. It's repetitive. It's unglamorous. It's eating at home when your mates go out. It's driving the old car when you could afford the new one. It's saying no to 1,000 small things so you can say yes to the one big thing, freedom. And freedom, real freedom, doesn't look the way most people think it does. It's not about buying whatever you want whenever you want it. That's just another form of slavery, slavery to your desires and impulses. Real freedom is waking up and knowing that you have choices. It's being able to walk away from a job that doesn't respect you because your bills are covered by your assets. It's being able to help your children without it destroying your own financial security. It's being able to pursue work you love rather than work that pays. It's sleeping peacefully at night knowing that your future is secure not because of what you might earn, but because of what you've already built. The path to this kind of freedom starts with a decision that most people never make. It's the decision to stop being a passenger in your own financial life and become the driver. And that means confronting some uncomfortable truths about the choices you've made up until now. I'm not here to make you feel bad about past mistakes. We've all made them. I certainly have. But I am here to tell you that every day you continue making the same choices is a day you're choosing your current reality over a better one. Let me tell you about a concept that completely transformed how I think about time and money. It's called years of freedom. Here's how it works. Take your annual expenses, the actual amount you need to live your life each year. Now look at your assets, the things you own that produce income or could be converted to income. Divide your assets by your annual expenses. That number is how many years of freedom you've bought yourself. For most people, that number is terrifyingly close to zero. They've worked for decades and bought themselves almost no freedom whatsoever. Every year, they have to go back to work and earn it all over again. They're one redundancy, one health crisis, one economic downturn away from financial catastrophe. But imagine having 10 years of freedom, 20 years, 30 years. Suddenly, work becomes optional. You can take risks. You can say no to things that don't serve you. You can invest time in learning new skills or building a business because you're not desperate for next month's paycheck. This is what wealthy people have that others don't. It's not fancier cars or bigger houses. It's time, it's options. It's the ability to make decisions based on what's right rather than what's necessary. Now, building years of freedom requires you to understand something that goes against everything you've been taught. Our entire culture is built around spending. Every advertisement, every social media post, every conversation about success is designed to make you feel like you need more things. A better car will make you happy. A bigger house will make you successful. The latest phone will make you complete. But here's the reality. Every single one of those purchases is trading your future freedom for present consumption. And the exchange rate is terrible. Think about it this way. That $40,000 car you're considering, If you invested that money instead at a conservative 8% return, in 30 years it would be worth over for $400,000. You're not just buying a car, you're selling a potential fortune. Now, maybe you genuinely need a reliable vehicle. Fair enough. But do you need a 40,001? What if you bought a perfectly good car for 15,000? You've just kept a 25,000 that could become 250,000 in 3 decades. That's the real cost of your choices, and nobody talks about it because the entire economy depends on you not doing this maths. Here's something else that might shock you. The difference between someone who retires broke and someone who retires wealthy often comes down to just a few £100 a month invested consistently over their working life. Not thousands, not some massive windfall, just consistent, disciplined investing of modest amounts. But most people can't do it, not because they can't afford it, but because they can't delay gratification long enough to see it through. They start, they stop, they get distracted by something shiny, they convince themselves they'll start again next year. And next year becomes next decade becomes never. I want you to understand something about how the wealthy actually live, because it's nothing like what you see on television. Real wealth whispers, it doesn't shout. The truly wealthy often drive ordinary cars, live in nice but not ostentatious homes, and you'd walk right past them on the street without a second glance. Why? Because they understand that displaying wealth and building wealth are opposite activities. Every pound spent on impressing others is a pound not working to set you free. They've made a choice about what matters more, looking rich or being free. And they've chosen freedom every single time. This brings me to one of the most important principles I can share with you. Your income is not your financial report card. Your net worth is, and more specifically, your productive net worth, the assets you own that generate income or will appreciate significantly over time. Your house doesn't count unless it's producing rental income. Your car definitely doesn't count. Your designer clothes, your electronics, your furniture, none of it counts. What counts is what puts money in your pocket. Rental properties, dividend-paying investments, businesses, intellectual property. These are the things that actually matter when we're talking about wealth. Most people have this equation backwards. They focus on increasing their income so they can increase their spending. But wealthy people focus on increasing their assets so they can decrease their dependence on income. See the difference? One path leads to a nicer version of the same trap. The other path leads to actual freedom. And the fascinating thing is, once you have enough assets producing income, you can spend more than the high-income person ever could, because your spending isn't limited by how many hours you can work. It's only limited by how well your assets perform. Let me give you a practical example of how this works. Suppose you have 100,000 in dividend, paying investments yielding 4% annually. That's 4,000 a year in passive income. Now you could take that to 4,000 and spend it, which is fine. But what if you reinvested it? The next year you're earning dividends on $104, then 108, 160, 486. In 20 years, without adding another penny, that 100,000 becomes with 219,000, and it's generating at 760 per year. But if you had been taking that income and spending it, you'd still just have your original 100,000 generating $4,000 per year. The difference between these two approaches over a lifetime is staggering. It's literally the difference between comfortable retirement and struggling through your final years. And this is where patience becomes your greatest asset. We live in a world of instant everything. Instant food, instant entertainment. But wealth is the one thing that cannot be rushed. It must be grown, nurtured, protected, and given time to compound. This is why so many people fail. They want the results now, but they're not willing to do the boring work of consistently investing for decades. They get excited, invest for 6 months, see modest returns, get discouraged, and give up. Then they watch someone else succeed and call it luck, never realizing that person simply did the boring thing for long enough that it became extraordinary. Here's my challenge to you, and I'm being completely serious about this. For the next 90 days, track every single penny you spend, every coffee, every app purchase, every meal out, everything. At the end of 90 days, categorize that spending into 3 groups: absolutely necessary, adds genuine value to my life, and pure waste. I guarantee you'll be shocked by how much falls into that third category. Now, take that wasted money, the amount you spent on things that added nothing to your life, and calculate what it would become if invested over 20 years. That number you're looking at, that's what your unconscious spending is costing you. That's the price of financial sleepwalking. But knowledge without action is just entertainment. You can watch videos about finance all day long, read books, listen to podcasts, and it won't change anything unless you actually do something different. The system is counting on you to stay exactly where you are. It profits from your inertia. Breaking free requires you to make different choices starting today, not tomorrow, not next month, today. Even if it's small, even if it feels insignificant, the compound effect of small, consistent actions over time is how everything meaningful gets built. 150 a.m., so where do you actually begin? Because I know that feeling of looking at your current situation and wondering how you're supposed to build wealth when you're barely getting by. The answer isn't complicated, but it does require honesty. You have to stop lying to yourself about where your money goes. Most people genuinely believe they can't afford to save or invest, but when you actually examine their spending, there's always money being wasted. Always. It's just hidden in subscriptions they don't use, convenience purchases they don't need, and lifestyle inflation they never questioned. Here's a framework that works. Take your next paycheck, and before you do anything else, before you pay a single bill, move 10% into a separate account that you treat as untouchable. This is your freedom fund. It doesn't matter if 10% feels like too much right now. Start with 5%. Start with 3%. The specific number matters less than the habit of paying yourself first. Because here's what happens when you do this. You're forced to make your remaining money work. You become creative. You find inefficiencies in your spending. You discover that you actually can live on less than you thought. And that discipline, that ability to operate within constraints, is the foundation of all wealth building. Most people do the opposite. They pay everyone else first. The landlord, the credit card company, the phone provider, the streaming services, the restaurants, the shops. Then, if there's anything left over, maybe they save it. But there's never anything left over, is there? Because spending expands to fill available resources. It's called Parkinson's Law, and it will keep you broke for your entire life unless you consciously fight against it. The only way to fight it is to remove the money from your reach before you have a chance to spend it. Now, let's talk about what you do with that money once you've started accumulating it. This is where most people make their second major mistake. They save it in a regular bank account earning essentially nothing, or they put it in some complicated investment they don't understand because someone in a suit told them to. Both approaches are wrong. Your money needs to work as hard as you do, but you also need to understand exactly what it's doing and why. If you can't explain your investment strategy to a 12-year-old, you don't have a strategy. You have a hope and a prayer, and that's not good enough. Start simple. Start with index funds that track the overall market. These aren't exciting. You won't have stories to tell at dinner parties. But over 20 or 30 years, they consistently outperform almost everything else with minimal effort and fees. The reason most people don't do this isn't because it doesn't work. It's because it's boring and it requires patience. They want the thrill of picking individual stocks, of timing the market, of finding the next big thing. And occasionally, someone gets lucky doing that. But for every person who gets lucky, there are 100 who lose money trying. Wealth building isn't about being clever. It's about being consistent and not doing stupid things. Let me share something about risk that most people get completely wrong. They think keeping money in a savings account is safe and investing in assets is risky. But that's only true if you're thinking short term. Over the long term, not investing is the riskiest thing you can do. Inflation is eating your purchasing power every single year. That money sitting in your account earning 1% whilst inflation runs at 3%. You're losing 2% of its value annually. In 20 years, you'll have lost a third of your purchasing power. That's not safe. That's guaranteed decline. Real safety comes from owning assets that grow faster than inflation and generate income. That's what protects you. But here's the part that requires real courage. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable now for the sake of your future self. You have to be willing to say no when everyone around you is saying yes. Your mates are going on an expensive holiday. You're staying home and investing the difference. Your colleague just leased a luxury car. You're driving your paid-off vehicle and putting what would have been lease payments into dividend stocks. Your family thinks you're being tight. Let them think that whilst you're quietly building a foundation that will support you for decades. This is the loneliness of the path to wealth. Nobody celebrates the boring decisions. Nobody applauds when you pass up immediate pleasure for long-term gain. Nobody understands why you're not keeping up with their lifestyle when you could afford to. But here's what they don't see. They're on a treadmill that never stops. They have to keep earning, keep spending, keep running just to stay in place. You're building an escape route. And one day, not too far in the future, you'll step off that treadmill whilst they're still running. That's when they'll understand. But by then, it'll be too late for them to catch up easily. I want to talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough in financial education, the psychological barriers to wealth. Because the truth is, most people are more afraid of being wealthy than they are of being poor. Being poor is familiar. It's what they know. It comes with a community of other people in the same situation and a set of accepted behaviors. But being wealthy, that's unknown territory. It means changing your identity, potentially losing friends who resent your success, dealing with family members who suddenly need help, navigating social situations differently. The fear of this change keeps more people broke than any lack of knowledge or opportunity ever could. You have to decide who you're going to be. Are you going to be the person who plays it safe, who stays comfortable, who fits in with everyone around you, even if it means sacrificing your future? Or are you going to be the person who makes hard choices, who endures short-term discomfort, who is willing to be misunderstood on the path to something greater? There's no judgment either way. It's your life. But you can't have both. You can't build wealth whilst living like everyone else. The mathematics don't work. The habits don't align. You have to choose. And if you choose wealth, if you choose freedom, then you need to understand that it's going to cost you something. Not just money invested instead of spent. It's going to cost you certainty. It's going to cost you comfort. It's going to cost you fitting in. But what you get in return is something most people never experience. Genuine financial security. The ability to sleep at night knowing that you're not 3 missed paychecks away from disaster. The ability to make choices based on what you want rather than what you need. The ability to help the people you love without destroying yourself in the process. This is what I've learned after decades of studying how money works, how economies function, how wealth is created and destroyed. The game is rigged, yes, but it's rigged in favor of those who understand the rules and play accordingly. You can spend your life complaining about the unfairness of it all, or you can learn the rules and use them to your advantage. The choice, as always, is yours, but understand this, not choosing is still a choice. Staying where you are is still a choice, and every day you make that choice is a day you're choosing your current reality over a better one. So start today. Start small if you have to, but start. Pay yourself first. Invest consistently. Live below your means. Avoid debt like the poison it is. Think in decades, not months. And most importantly, stop measuring your success by your income and start measuring it by your freedom. Because in the end, that's all that really matters. Not how much you earned, not what you bought, but how much of your life you actually own. How many years of freedom you built. How many choices you had. The salary trap is real, it's powerful, and it's designed to keep you exactly where you are. But now you know it exists. Now you understand how it works. And that knowledge, if you act on it, if you let it change your behavior, is the key to your freedom. The question is, what are you going to do with it?